When you hear the name Drew Brees, you probably think of a future Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best to play the position in the sport. You probably think of a guy who is one of the best quarterbacks of all time while playing in the greatest era of quarterbacks. Brees was someone who broke many records and engraved his legacy in NFL history, and even as a Super Bowl champion. But what if I were to tell you that despite all of the achievements that he accomplished in his career and the great legacy he left behind, Drew Brees may be one of the unluckiest quarterbacks in NFL history, if not the unluckiest. From having some of the worst supporting casts in the NFL, like having a bottom-ranked defense and a really bad special teams, to heartbreaking playoff losses as he watched his defense give up a last-second touchdown, or how about the fact that he never won an MVP? All of this leads me to believe that Drew Brees may be one of the unluckiest quarterbacks in NFL history. And to understand the full extent of this, we have to go back to his early days in the NFL. My name's Kaj, and before we dive more into this, I would appreciate it if you took 5 seconds to subscribe to my channel. We're trying to hit 15K this year. These videos take a lot of time, effort, and energy to put together, so help support the channel and stay up to date with more NFL content. And with that being said, enjoy the video. Drew Brees' NFL career began when he was drafted by the, at the time, San Diego Chargers in the second round of the 2001 NFL Draft. His time with the Chargers started off as a backup quarterback to Doug Flutie before becoming the eventual starting quarterback in 2002, but his first 2 years as a starter did not pan out so well. Drew Brees, during his first 2 years as an NFL starter, he had a record of 10-17, completing 59% of his passes for a total of 5,300 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 31 interceptions. A lot of these struggles came in 2003, his second season as an NFL starter, his third season in the NFL, which led to him being benched for Doug Flutie after a 1-7 start, but he will take over the starting job yet again in Week 15. It was these struggles from Drew Brees that led the Chargers to drafting Eli Manning with the first overall pick in the 2004 NFL Draft. But due to Eli Manning not wanting to play for the Chargers, they would trade Eli Manning for Philip Rivers as the team looked to replace Drew Brees. But the year they tried to replace Drew Brees, he actually had his breakout season. In 15 games in 2004, Drew Brees threw for 3,100 yards with 27 touchdown passes and only 7 interceptions. He had a quarterback rating of 104.8, and only Peyton Manning and Dante Culpepper had a better quarterback rating. Brees would be selected to his first Pro Bowl and was named Comeback Player of the Year. And he did all of this while leading the Chargers to an 11-4 record, breaking a 9-year playoff drought. It was the Chargers' first playoff season since 1995. In his first postseason game, Drew Brees would throw for 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception, in a loss to the New York Jets in overtime, 20-17, in the wildcard round. The 2004 season was promising enough from Drew Brees for the Chargers to name him as their franchise player, which at the time was basically a franchise tag, despite the investment they had in Philip Rivers already. So Drew Brees would stay on the Chargers for another season, earning $8 million. Then in 2005, Drew Brees did not quite play up to the same level as he did the year before. He still threw for 3,500 yards, he led the Chargers to a winning record of 9-7, and had a 64% completion percentage, but he threw 15 interceptions. And in the final game of the 2005 season, Drew Brees suffered a dislocated right shoulder injury that was considered very severe and was a 1 in 500 occurrence. The injury involved a 360-degree tear in his labrum, a 50% tear in his rotator cuff, and a dislocation of the shoulder joint. And Drew Brees has explained this injury as the one that would fast-track him to having a degenerative shoulder injury, and now he can't even use his right shoulder at all post-NFL.
I'll let you know a little fact. I don't throw with my right arm anymore. My right arm does not work. So when I throw in the backyard right now, I throw left-handed. I can play pickleball just because it's below the waist, but anything above my shoulders, I've got a hard time with. And it's probably a result of it's definitely a result of the injury that I suffered when I left San Diego, the dislocated right shoulder and all that stuff that I thought I may never play again. So that kind of put me on the fast track to a degenerative shoulder and all kinds of arthritic changes and stuff like that. So no, I don't throw with my right arm anymore.
This injury and a disappointing season led the Chargers to move on from Drew Brees and focus their attention on Phillip Rivers as their possible long-term answer at quarterback. Drew Brees was told that he may never play football again, but with extensive surgery, rehab, and with some physical therapy, he would end up in New Orleans on a 6-year, $60 million contract after the Miami Dolphins chose not to sign him due to his injury and concerns about him passing a physical. So that's how Drew Brees ended up in New Orleans as a Saint, where he would spend 15 seasons in his NFL career and is mainly known as a New Orleans Saint. In those 15 seasons as a Saint, Drew Brees broke countless records, making his mark in NFL history. He was selected to 13 Pro Bowls. In the cherry on top, he won a Super Bowl. People remember the greatness that he left on the field, but what people don't remember or may not even know is that during his period with the Saints, Drew Brees dealt with severe roadblocks, bad luck, and despite these roadblocks, he was still able to establish himself as one of the best. But what exactly were these roadblocks that prevented Drew Brees from having more success in his NFL career? Let's start off with the supporting cast. Drew Brees played a total of 15 seasons for the New Orleans Saints, and of those 15 seasons, 10 times he had a bottom half ranked defense in the NFL. 2007 was ranked 30th, 2008 26th, 2009 was 17th, 2011 28th, 2012 to 2016 was at the bottom of the NFL, and in 2017 he had the 25th ranked overall defense. These defenses were so bad they were literally running into each other, giving up touchdowns to the Titans and opposing teams. Not only was the defense doing this, but the players on special teams were running into each other, turning the ball over on primetime football. These defenses were so bad, Drew Brees had to score 52 points, throw 7 touchdowns to only win a game by 3 points against the 4-4 New York Giants. He had to throw the Saints to victory because that was the only way they could win games with the right arm and shoulder of Drew Brees. To put this into perspective, Drew Brees lost 28 games in which he threw for 350 yards or more. No other quarterback in NFL history has lost more than 18 games when throwing for over 350 yards. And just a little extra information, before that 2019 game versus the 49ers, Drew Brees was 6-1 in his career versus teams with the number 1 ranked total defense, and he would end up losing that game to the 49ers, not because of him though. And this doesn't even include the bottom ranked defenses he had with the San Diego Chargers in 2002 and 2003. If it wasn't for Drew Brees, a good portion of these seasons for the Saints likely would have resulted in top 5 picks. The Saints would have been viewed similar to the Lions and the Browns and the Titans, but instead they resulted in 7-9 seasons due to Drew Brees and how good of a player he was. These horrible defenses and supporting casts took away many great comebacks that Drew Brees led the team downfield only to lose. As of December of 2019, after losing to the 49ers in a 48-46 game and leading a game-winning drive, Drew Brees at the time had led 21 game-winning go-ahead drives in the fourth quarter to only still lose the game. And at the time in 2019, Aaron Rodgers had 11, Peyton Manning had 6, and Tom Brady had 4. So Drew Brees had the same amount of games where he led a game-winning drive and still lost as Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Brady combined. And despite all of this, Drew Brees is tied with Ben Roethlisberger for third all-time in game-winning drives with 53, right behind Peyton Manning, who has 54, and Tom Brady, who has 58. Drew Brees would likely be viewed as a better quarterback in NFL history if it wasn't for an atrocious supporting cast around him. He would have more game-winning drives, he would have more games won in his NFL career, and he would have more playoff appearances if he had just an average defense on the other side of the ball supporting him. Unfortunately, though, that wasn't all the bad luck that Drew Brees faced as a Saint. Even when the team was good enough to make the playoffs and had a good, solid defense, weird, strange things just continue to happen into the postseason. Which takes us to our next talking point, the playoffs. Let's go back to the 2011 divisional playoff game. The Saints were playing the 49ers on the road in San Francisco. Despite the Saints having one of the best offenses of all time that season, the records that Drew Brees and that offense broke for like the most passing yards in NFL history in a single season at the time, and going 13-3 in 2011 wasn't enough for the Saints to get seeded within the top 2. The top two seeds that season were the 15-1 Packers and the 13-3 49ers. So as a 13-3 team, the Saints had to play the Detroit Lions in the wild card and then travel to San Francisco for the divisional round. And this game is a classic, one of the best playoff games ever, unless you're a Saints fan. The Saints went down 17-0 in the second quarter after some costly turnovers like an interception and a fumble at the goal line. But Drew Brees was able to bring the team back, throwing for 462 yards, 4 touchdowns on 40 completions and 63 passing attempts. This included a 66-yard touchdown pass to Jimmy Graham with under 2 minutes left to take the lead and possibly win the game, only for Drew Brees' defense to let up a touchdown with under 15 seconds left to Vernon Davis, and the 49ers would win this game. 9 times out of 10, the Saints win this game, but it just so happened to be the Saints were that one time that they lost. And this wouldn't be the last time Drew Brees' defense let him down in the postseason. Fast forwarding to 2017, the divisional round playing in Minnesota. Very similar to the 2011 49ers game, the Saints got down early to the Vikings 17-0 at the half. And just like Drew Brees always did, he led a comeback. He got his team in position to win with the clutch 4th down conversion to Willie Snead, which set up what should have been a game-winning field goal. You could honestly make the argument that this was one of Drew Brees' best postseason games in his career. Despite a first half slump, he led a comeback in that second half. He found touchdowns, he got them back in rhythm, played in a tough environment, didn't have a running game, and he was able to come up clutch when the team needed him most. But in one of his best performances in his career in the postseason, his defense led up a 61-yard touchdown as time expired due to a missed tackle from Marcus Williams, and Stephon Diggs ran down the sideline for the touchdown. Another case, 9 times out of 10 the Saints win that game, but it just so happens to be the Saints were the outlier in that game and they ended up losing. And then just 1 year later, the Saints were victims to one of the worst no calls in NFL history, which took place preventing Drew Brees from reaching his second Super Bowl. This time it wasn't really the defense's fault, but it was something out of anyone's control. The first seed Saints were hosting the second seed Rams in the NFC Championship game. It was coming down to the fourth quarter after the Saints took a 13-0 lead and the Rams made a comeback. Just before the 2-minute warning, Drew Brees took a downfield shot, finding his wide receiver Ted Ginn for a huge play, setting them up in field goal position and possibly to win the game. And all they needed to do was get a first down and the game would essentially be over. But just 2 plays later on 3rd down, the no call happened. A play that would have set the Saints up in position to run out the clock, kick a field goal, and win the game and go back to the Super Bowl. But instead, a flag was not thrown on one of the most obvious pass interferences in NFL history. Had a flag been thrown, the Saints and Rams don't go to overtime, there's no interception, there's no anything, and the Saints are headed to the Super Bowl. But instead, no flag was thrown. When the game was taken to overtime, Drew Brees would be face masked on a play where he threw an interception, but no flag was thrown and the Saints would lose the game, which was the closest the franchise had gotten to a Super Bowl since 2009. You can call it a coincidence, you can call it luck, bad luck, unlucky, cursed, whatever it is. But for whatever reason, strange, odd things just seem to happen to Drew Brees. Remember that 2019 game versus the 49ers we mentioned earlier? The one where Drew Brees led a game-winning drive only to lose 48-46? Well, that game ended up costing the Saints a bye week in the playoffs in 2019. And yet again, the Saints were in the wild card as a 13-3 team taking on the Minnesota Vikings, in which they lost in overtime as the defense led up a goal line fade touchdown. And for the 3rd straight postseason, Drew Brees watched his defense let up a game-winning score on the final play as he watched the season end. That's not to say Drew Brees played good in that game either, and in his final game, the divisional round matchup versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady, he simply just didn't play well. He threw 3 interceptions, he couldn't throw the ball downfield, his shoulder simply wasn't able to get the job done. But he did have his team in position to win the game in the 3rd, 4th quarter when they were up 20-13, driving downfield around midfield, and then Jared Cook had a costly fumble, giving the Buccaneers momentum, which allowed them to score pretty effectively, and it was just downhill from there, and the Saints would end up losing the game. To put Drew Brees' career in a nutshell, he was a really good quarterback who was held back by horrible defenses, and when the team as a whole was good enough to get in the playoffs, the wildest things would happen. And we didn't even mention the Beastquake run in the video. But something that stands out in a negative light on Drew Brees' career is the fact that he never won an MVP award. But why? Why did one of the best quarterbacks of all time never win an MVP award when he definitely should have? How can a guy who's thrown for 5,000 yards 5 times while nobody else has done it more than twice never win an MVP? The quarterback with 80,000 passing yards and 571 career touchdown passes, a guy who has broken almost every single record in the record book, never won an MVP. How is this possible? Well, for starters, the NFL isn't naming a player on a team with the losing record as the MVP of the league. So that eliminates 3 of the 5,000-yard seasons Drew Brees had. In 2011, Drew Brees arguably should have won MVP after breaking the all-time passing yards record. But at the same time, Aaron Rodgers had a ridiculous season that year for the Packers, and they had a better record, and outside of yards, Aaron Rodgers did have the better season over Drew Brees, who only had 1 more touchdown and a significant more interceptions and passing attempts. There's a big debate about who should have won in 2011. It really could have gone either way. I understand the logic for Rodgers, and I understand the logic for Brees. So that leaves one 5,000-yard passing season left, and that was in 2013. But why didn't he win it in 2013? Well, that year, Peyton Manning had his best season of his NFL career, breaking records, leading one of the best offenses of all time, throwing for the most touchdowns and yards in a season, and going to the Super Bowl. So that's why 2013, Drew Brees did not win an MVP. But what about the seasons Drew Brees could have won an MVP where he didn't throw for 5,000 yards? There's 3 seasons that come to mind that meet that criteria: 2006, 2009, and 2018. In all of these years, he was a runner-up MVP. And throughout his entire career, Drew Brees was a runner-up MVP 4 total times, the other one being in 2011. 2006 was Drew Brees' first season with the Saints. He led the team to an NFC championship after the team went 3-13 the year before. That season, Drew Brees threw for 4,400 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions with a completion percentage of 64%. But LaDainian Tomlinson had one of the best seasons by a running back in NFL history, running for 28 touchdowns and I believe 1,800 yards, which led to him being the league MVP over Drew Brees. 2009 though was the year Drew Brees should have won MVP, and that was the year he truly was robbed of winning MVP. In 2009, Peyton Manning ended up winning the league MVP award, despite Drew Brees having a better completion percentage, 1 more touchdown pass, and 5 less interceptions and only 112 less yards than Peyton Manning. The only things Peyton Manning had over Drew Brees was passing yards by only 100 yards, and a 14-2 record versus Drew Brees' 13-2 record. It was actually insane that Drew Brees did not win MVP in 2009. But in the end of the 2009 season, Drew Brees got what really mattered over Peyton Manning: the Super Bowl win and the Super Bowl MVP. But he should have also been the regular season MVP as well to go along with it. And finally, in 2018, Drew Brees by this time was no longer really in his prime, but he was still playing football at a really high level with limitations in his shoulder. He wasn't going to be throwing for 5,000 yards anymore. He wasn't going to be throwing the ball 80 yards downfield like he did effortlessly in 2014, but he was playing at a high level, but just a different high level of football. 2018 was the first time Drew Brees in his career did not throw for over 4,000 yards since 2005, before he was a Saint. But his accuracy with his 32 touchdowns to 5 interception ratio, on top of the Saints being one of the best teams in the NFL, would ideally line up with him winning MVP in 2018, and if a no call doesn't happen, maybe winning the Super Bowl and retiring that year. But 2018 just so happened to be the first year Patrick Mahomes became a starter and showed the entire NFL world what he could do. Mahomes in 2018 threw for 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, and had the Chiefs at 12-4 his first year as a starting NFL quarterback, and there was no way he wasn't winning an MVP. He was making exciting plays, he was the younger guy, first-time starter, and of course he threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. That's just undeniable. The tragedy here is that every time Drew Brees could have won MVP, somebody else had their best season of their career. LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006 had one of the best seasons by a running back of all time, and Drew Brees was not able to win MVP. 2009 was the one that he should have won, but Peyton Manning got it essentially due to the record. Aaron Rodgers in 2011 had his arguably best season of his career, the year Drew Brees could have won it. 2013, Peyton Manning had the best season of his career when Drew Brees could have won it. And Patrick Mahomes in 2018 had one of his best seasons of his career, which just so happened to be the first year he was an NFL starter in 2018. That was another year Drew Brees could have won it, but Mahomes had a really ridiculous season. On top of that, the seasons he threw for 5,000 yards didn't really matter either because the Saints were losing games going 7-9 and 8-8 due to bad defensive play and horrible supporting casts. So that eliminated some really good seasons from Drew Brees. So while Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, he would be a lot higher on lists and rankings if a few things went his way, like not having some of the worst defenses in the NFL, or miracles not taking place for him to lose in the postseason, preventing him from winning another ring, or how about players having the best seasons of their life, the seasons he could have won MVP. Coincidence or not, all of this leads me to think that Drew Brees may be one of the unluckiest quarterbacks in NFL history, despite him being one of the greats. My name's Cash, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, help support us, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Stay tuned with our NFL content that we post here daily, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good one. Peace.